Okay, so let's go ahead and get into position for the mini band squat. Again, you want a 9 or 10 inch mini band of some sort. We're going to put it right above the knees. All right, so that's going to go right above the knees here. Now with squatting, I have a special video on troubleshooting the squat. So if you have any issues with squatting where you feel like you don't do it well, or it hurts your knees, or your knees pop, or you have pain in your hip flexors, or you feel like something's not right with it, I have a whole video to kind of address each of those things, because squatting is great for us. But after reviewing a lot of videos and watching a lot of physical therapists online, there's so much conflicting advice out there, and honestly, it can be really confusing sometimes to know how to do it the right way. And the secret here is that it actually depends. So our bodies do vary quite a bit with the way our femur attaches into our hip bone, and that actually has to change how we squat. So I go more into detail on that. We'll just cover a few little basics here though today. So as far as your stance goes, usually you're gonna be around hip width or a little wider. So this is a slightly wider stance than we do most other, like just standing movements like bicep curls. We're going for a slightly wider stance here. We're trying to create some room so that when we squat down, there's room for our pelvis to drop down here, right, between our thighs. So usually a little bit of a wider stance. That said, as you squat, just try different stances and see what feels most comfortable to you. That's a good indicator of what is good for you. So we've got the width of the stance, that can vary a little. Now also the placement of the toes will also depend. Again, this is how our femur is attached to our pelvis here, and we don't always know that. In fact, we never know that. I don't know that. But again, you can tell by how comfortable or uncomfortable something feels. Now, some people are gonna feel good squatting with their toes pointed forward. For some of us, that might cause a weird pinching feeling in the hips. If that's you, or there's some other reason it's feeling uncomfortable, you might find that toeing out a bit is going to feel more comfortable for squatting. So try both ways and see what feels comfortable to you. All right, so from the side now, remember with a squat, we've got 3 main joints that are going through a lot of movement. That's our hip joint, our knee joint, and our ankle joint. So a lot of times when we struggle with a squat, it's actually a lack of ankle mobility, which is kind of surprising. And I will have in the troubleshooting video tips on how to increase our ankle mobility. The first thing I can say just right now is just really warm up, stretch the calf muscle, roll on the calf muscle, try to, get some ankle bending in before you do your squats, and that can really help a lot. So with that in mind, when we squat down, we're trying to go mostly down, but we want to think about just kind of sitting back just a little bit before we start going down. What we want to try to avoid doing is kind of having our weight shift forward. Sometimes if we just think about going straight down, what happens is we don't bend much at the hips, and then the knees come real forward, and we're kind of squatting like this. Do you see that? I'm very forward. Really what we want to do is have our butt back a bit and squat down like this, kind of like you're going to sit down on a chair or a toilet, as people say. There's a little bit of a backward motion to it, right? So keep that in mind as well. So we're going to kind of hinge here at the hips a little bit. Then we can go ahead and unlock the knees, and we're just gonna squat down. And the idea is to come down only as far as you can maintain a neutral spine. You've gone too low when your butt kind of tucks under. Do you see that? So I'm here, and then I go farther and my butt kind of tucks under. That's too low. That extra movement is coming from the low back instead of from the hip, knee, or ankle. And so it's not achieving what we want, even though we're going lower, okay? It's good to try to get to the point where you can at least get your thighs to parallel. But again, it's all just about really keeping that good form. And if you can't get to parallel, you can work towards it. So just go only as far as you can keep that neutral spine, not having the spine round. And over time, you'll find that you can get lower and lower. Hi, I'm Rizal. If you're a woman in your over 40s like myself and you'd like to do resistance training, but up to this point have felt kind of overwhelmed, felt like you were doing it wrong and you were going to hurt yourself, I try to create much more detailed tutorials that really break things down for you. Additionally, over on my website, I also have videos about common mistakes that are often made and how to fix those, ways to make the movements easier or harder. If that sounds good to you and you like my style of teaching, come on over to my website at inspirefulwomen.com. Now, as you lower, this is a little tip that I did not know about, and it has helped a lot with my knee comfort, actually. That involves, as you lower, you want to think about actively pulling yourself down with your hip flexor muscles. So we've got all sorts of muscles here in the front, right? And if you think about these muscles contracting actually as you lower, rather than like kind of just letting gravity pull you down, that greatly helped my knee popping myself, and it will be better on the knee joint as well. It's going to make you more stable in your core and just be less work on the knee. So as we bend back here and start bending, actively think about contracting these muscles on the front of the thighs. Go down as far as we can. You can have your hands out to help you counterbalance, to keep the chest up a little higher. And then you're gonna press up. You can squeeze your glute at the top. Oh my, smoke in my face. Go that way. You can squeeze your glute at the top, but you wanna make sure that when you stand up, you're not tucking your pelvis under. That's another thing that I used to do. So I thought I was squeezing my glute, but really I was tucking my pelvis under. So when you stand up, you just wanna stand up straight. If you know how to squeeze your glute without tucking your pelvis, you can do that. Otherwise, just think about standing up and call it good. Now back to the front again, because this is the mini band squat, right? So we need to kind of point out what's going on here. So with the mini band squat, as we go down, you're gonna have to make sure that you keep your knees kind of pressing out. And you want the knee to travel in line with the second and third toes. So if your feet are forward as you squat, they're gonna come forward in alignment, right? If I'm toed out, so say I'm right here, well now I don't want my knees going this way. I want them to travel out with my feet going this way, right? So again, in line with the second and third toes. But either way, this band, if I'm not doing work, what would happen? If I just squat, then the band's pulling my knees in like this, right? So we don't want that, and this is what's gonna work those side glute muscles, is by having to resist that band as we squat down. All right, let me do a few reps with you, and I might think of a few more things to say. Okay, actually, I thought of a couple more things to share before I go ahead and we practice a few together. So the last couple things are, you want to think about keeping the weight, like your center of mass, in your midfoot. So when you squat down, there should be like pretty much no weight on your toes. All right, so that's an important thing too. The other thing is both your torso and your shin are going to angle forward to some degree, and that is normal. Your knee may even go past your toe, and that's actually totally fine. I will cover some information about that in the troubleshooting pointers, but basically you want all of these joints to move freely, the hip, the knee, and the ankle. We don't want to be coming like this, right? But as long as you're sitting back, as your shin and upper torso hinge forward, that's normal, and that's gonna help you to have a healthy squat. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a few. Again, like I said, if you keep your hands out in front of you, it's gonna help you counterbalance and keep your torso a little more upright. Once you get into holding weights and stuff, then that will help you as well. But with the with a body weight squat, it's a little bit harder, so holding the hands out can help. You can even hold a weight in front of you as well. All right, let's go ahead. All right, let's do a few together now with you seeing me from the front. I'm gonna do toes forward first. So here we go. Remember, actively pull yourself down with the hip flexors. Press the knees out to resist the band. And you want that knee traveling in line with the second and third toes of your feet. All right, so then I'm gonna toe out a little, because that might be more comfortable for you. So now, instead of my knees traveling forward, they're gonna travel out along in alignment with my feet, right? Okay, so here we go. And that is it. Thanks for being with me today, ladies. Once again, I'm Razel, and if you're a woman in your over 40s like myself, and you'd like to do full-length workouts utilizing these same exercise movements, I create those as well. Over on my website, I have full-length workouts in beautiful outdoor nature settings with chill music. If that sounds like your style, come on over to my website at inspirefulwomen.com.